Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is to you. It's me, Chaz Large, with another video for you. And on the bench today we have a Sony MiniDisc player. It's a Type S MiniDisc model number MZ-N510, and as far as we know it just doesn't work. So I did have a previous look at it, and one of the things that I suspect is probably wrong with this is that it's had battery leakage. Looks like it's been cleaned up, so we'll stick a battery in and see what happens. So nothing on the display. Let's open it up, which is this little button here, and despite the look of it being that way around, you actually put the disc in at the back. So let me just try my test disc. So I'll tell you what, let's put it in around the right way, because it actually goes in slightly differently. Close it up. Nothing on the display. No sounds, no functionality. Nope. So it would seem that it is not going to be working from the off. Okay. Put my test disc away. Close it up. Take the battery out, and it should come out fairly easily. So let's take it apart. Looking at it underneath, there are no screws on the underside, but there are screws at the back, screws on the lid, screws on the front, nothing on this side. There's a USB plug and socket. I haven't tried it on USB. I suspect that probably, as I said, what's happened is we've got a leakage in here, and that's caused damage to the PCB, or corrosion has crept in somewhere and is causing a problem. So get my wow stick and see if we can get the screws out. Right, lovely. Bottom case has come apart. Let's get the old magnifying glasses on it and a bit of light. Okay, so I've got my headlight on. We can have a good little look at this circuit board. Let's bring this camera in close and a wee bit of focusing. Okay, so long as I keep everything about there, we should all be able to see. It doesn't appear that there's any battery leakage on the main board, so thankfully it hasn't gone very far. That's just the ordinary flux residue. Now, has it gone on the underside of the board? That's the crucial thing. Can we see in there if it's gone on the underside of the board? No, it hasn't, by the look of it. Okay, so let's try another little trick. Let's see if we can replace the battery with power from switch. That's interesting. There's a little push switch there. Is that what? So when we release the mechanism, we press that button in. Oh, that's the button. So if we put the disc in, I see, yeah. So that little button there, when you press the eject, that button is closed. Okay, so it's not something that has to be engaged for it to work. So let's get the old power supply going and stick 1.5 volts directly onto the battery terminals and see if it's drawing any current. So turn the old voltage down. Right, so we have 1.5 volts on the power supply, negative on there, and on the power supply if we connect that to there, no current being drawn. Ah, right. Lo and behold, it's trying to read. It's found one track and it's playing. Well, what do you do? So it's just purely a case of battery terminal. That's all it is by the look of it. So I think it might be easier if we remove that battery terminal, took it out, cleaned it and put it back. Let's see if we can do that. This is going to be a quick little fix, hopefully. Soldering iron on. Right, soldering iron is warmed up and we'll get it nicely cleaned up. We'll give it a bit of a tin and we'll just put some fresh solder onto this connector before we use the desoldering tool braid to take it off. The desoldering braid is all well and good, but this stuff that I bought fairly recently, Duratool, but it's a very thin desoldering braid, and the braid I used to use was much wider, so it doesn't seem to suck as well. Well, it's just making brilliant soldering joint all the time. It's just not desoldering it at all. I suppose what I could do is get a very fine screwdriver under this mounting so that try and lift yeah, that seemed like a good idea. Now hopefully we can clear that plate with braid. To a degree. Okay. So now we have a contact, battery contact, covered in green. And for cleaning contacts, there's several ways of doing it. One way is to use a fibre pen. Which works to a certain degree. And another way is actually to use ultrasound. So I've got a little ultrasound bath used for cleaning contact lenses and earrings and that. It's a little tiny one rather than a big industrial one. So I think I'm going to give that a go. Let me pause there for a minute. Right, so I've got my little U10 ultrasound bath. So I bought this and used it half a dozen times, but it's worked actually quite handy for doing electrical repairs as well. So that's been quite useful. And what I found useful is this water-based PCB cleaning fluid, which you can get off the internet. So I use this, and it seems to work quite well with cleaning PCBs in ultrasound. So just basically put some into the bath, just enough to cover the bottom of the little plastic tray, so it covers that. Put that to one side. Pop the thing in there, and luckily, because we got a clear lens on the top, we can actually see. 3 minutes and we'll see what happens. You can actually see now on the plastic tray and on the device itself, you can see the blue coming away, the battery acid that was stuck to the thing is coming away. Right, so I put some gloves on just in case there's anything nasty on this, but I don't think there will be. Let's just give it a little swish about. Okie dokie. That's looking nice and clean, isn't it? Apart from that little blue, that's all come off there as well. Just give it another little swish about. So, we seem to have got rid of now have a really quite nice clean battery terminal. It's good, isn't it? I'll just give it a little brush off with a brush just to remove any other stuff that might be floating on there, but I think once that's dry, in a piece of paper towel or something, that should be okay. I'll just pause the video there for a minute. Right, so we just pop this onto a piece of paper. We'll mop it up off the bench as well. And that should give us a reasonably good contact. Now, probably need to just push that out slightly, like that, so it's just slightly pushed out for when we put it back into the unit. Right, pause again. Right, so having got that clean and dried, obviously we've got a little bit of blue stuff left over. We should be able to just brush that away with our little cleaning brush. And a little dose of compressed air. We should now be able to put that battery terminal back in there. Now I've used the ultrasound bath to clean battery terminals many times before, and it always seems to work. You saw that I use a cleaning fluid, but you can do it with just water, but that cleaning fluid is quite cheap. Can't remember exactly how much I paid for it, but it wasn't much. But you can actually use it just to clean circuit boards anyway, just for, you know, if you've got like a little bath, you can put a circuit board in and then cover it with that fluid, and then just give it a brush with a brush. So that it may well work without the ultrasound, but ultrasound just seems to do it a lot quicker. Alright, battery terminal is on. Looks to be okay. Let's try a battery in there. Oh. Press the eject for the disc, and the battery flies out. Alright, pop the disc back in. Low battery. Well, that wouldn't help, would it? I could have sworn that was a good battery. Yeah. 1.2 volts. Right, I'm back with a new battery, and I know that if I pop that in there, it's just going to keep popping out, so I'm going to actually put the cover back on here. I'm not going to screw it together until we've tested it. So let's pop that back on there. Make sure the button is still working to open the lid, which it does. Probably work a little bit better when it's actually screwed together. Pop the battery in and close it up. So it's saying no disc, so let's open it up, put the disc in. And press play, and it's playing. So we just need some sound out of it. So we've got a little sound bar that I bought years ago. Works well as a little tester. Let's plug that in. Yeah, so it's playing. Now this particular disc, when I made it, I only made it with one track. Well, actually it's got two tracks. So all the music on it is just in one track. So to find the next piece of music, you have to scan rather than next. If I just go next, it will try to play track 2, and then it will give up after a second or so. So I'll just go back to track 1. So then what you have to do is, when it starts to play, press and hold the fast forward, and then it will scan through, and you'll hear it. Like that. Alright, so if we want to skip on a bit further, just press and hold. So really what I want to test is to see whether it will play right the way to the end. So I can either press and hold and scan it right the way to the end of the 74 minutes. Well, it's going to take ages. But what I'll do is I'll put another disc in which has got all the tracks recorded one after the other. Because obviously the way I recorded this, I basically just put a load of tracks together through a media player to play into the MiniDisc, and of course I didn't separate the tracks out. If you want to do MiniDisc recordings onto a MiniDisc with individual tracks, the best way of doing it is actually record all your music as separate tracks on a CD, and then synchro start your CD player through to your MiniDisc recorder, so that for each track as it finishes, the CD stops, and then the MiniDisc will say, right, there's a new track, so I start recording a new track. So that's the best way of doing it. If you've got a MiniDisc system or a stack system, which is what I've got for doing it. Otherwise you've got to sit there and wait for the track to end and press stop and then record again, or pause, however, whatever your MiniDisc recorder does. So this particular one has got music on in multiple tracks, so I'm going to skip each track after it's played a few seconds so that we don't get hits from the YouTube content library, match. So press play. That's the first track. Track 2. 2 seconds of that one. And that one. That's track 5, so it's part way through the thing. So I'm going to skip on to track 20, which is the most number of tracks on this particular disc. So it's gone right the way to the outside of the disc. So that pretty much guarantees that the mechanism is working all the way to the outside of the disc and playing it. So I'm pretty happy with that as a repair. Fairly quick little repair. Nothing much. The rest of the circuitry is okay, so customer can have this back and start using it, and tell them, make sure when you finish playing with it you take the battery out. Don't leave the batteries in devices because they leak and that causes problems. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Cheerio.